Oi, oi, all right, all right. How's it going? I'm Grant, you're you. This is the Doodle Review coming through today with a new album to give a spin, chat some frap about, and then assign an arbitrary score to. You could almost call this one an archive review at this point. Turnstile's Never Enough has been around for ages. Those of you that follow my newsletter will know that I actually got my review of this album out pretty close to the release date. I'm not that far behind the curve. So if you're not part of the growing community that we've got in our newsletter segment, do sign up. You will get news reviews closer to when they come out. I also cover a broader range of genres, smaller artists. It's a newsletter that comes out once a week in your inbox. Give it a go. But today we're here to talk about Turnstile. So let's do that. I've been unapologetically on the Turnstile train for a number of years now. Maybe not since when they first came out, emerging from the Baltimore hardcore scene like 2010 to 2011, but when they broke through to a wider audience in 2018 with Time and Space. And it all felt like almost immediately at that point they started getting shit from the hardcore purists out there who railed against their accessible riffs, their accessible vocals, their willingness to incorporate softer genre influences, and ultimately just railed against their mainstream appeal. In 2021, Glow On took that success and their detractors' criticisms to a whole new level, blowing up worldwide in a way that hasn't been seen by a rock band in decades. Under the architecture of the pre-internet music industry, I genuinely believe Glow On would have received like Nevermind level success, but launching into the streaming era with pop culture as fragmented as it is, I don't think that could ever be. Regardless, album's a 10 out of 10 in terms of its quality, and with the way it brought new listeners into its genre and influenced the style of younger bands, I still feel somewhat comfortable with the Nirvana comparison in terms of impact. Maybe not quite as much, but still. Following up a record like that's always going to be a hard task. And as a band, I think you've got like three options available to you. Number one, break up, call it quits. Just don't follow it up at all. Number two, take a hard left turn and do something completely different. Or three, make a direct sequel and try to exceed what came before by doing exactly the same. Those that try option two generally have to suffer, the wrath of fans and critics in the short term, but it does allow a bit more creative freedom in the future. Nirvana themselves took that route with In Utero. Weezer did it with Pinkerton after the Blue Album. Hell, Fleetwood Mac did it with Tusk after Rumors. A more recent example would be Tame Impala following up Lonerism with Currents. There are a few bands out there that manage to pull off the third option, that create something bigger or make a sequel. Definitely maybe following that up with What's the Story, Morning Glory. Strokes following Is This It with Room on Fire. Arctic Monkeys maybe following Whatever People Say I Am with Favorite Worst Nightmare. There's a very British centric selection of music there. But those albums took that formula of taking their preceding classic and just making it bigger, and it worked for them. When Turnstile released the title track to Never Enough about 6 to 8 weeks before the album came out, it was clear from the first few seconds of those bright synthesizers that the band had opted to try and follow that route themselves. The song not only captured the same vibe as Mystery, the iconic first track of Glow On, but its vocal melody, chord progression, and eventual drop came off like a straight up remake of the track. Seeing Stars was the next song to be released, I think. And this time it had a clean chorus soaked guitar that tonally felt straight out of last record's Underwater Boy. The full album's now upon us, and it reveals an abundance of other Glow On similarities, all of which feel so on the nose that they can't be accidental. With the title of the LP actually being Never Enough, I can't help but wonder if among the bright, crowd unifying hardcore bangers, Turnstile have actually released some sort of like meta commentary on our sequel obsessed corporate culture, a byproduct of the growth at all costs, late stage capitalist society that we find ourselves in. There's nothing actually in the lyrics to suggest this theme aside from that title, but having that many similarities to their now classic Glow On, it's just, even repeating the flow of the track list, it's just feels so intentional. That's where my head goes with that sort of stuff. So look, whether it's a cynical jab at the business or a sincere attempt to recreate the magic, look, I guess it doesn't really matter. The album is what it is, and what it is, it's pretty great. Putting aside the record similarities to Glow On, and the motivations to kind of make it as similar as it is. Never Enough spends about half of its runtime delivering punchy but accessible bangers that ride the line between hardcore and hard rock. The other half kind of knocking on the door of dream pop, and somehow they pull these two normally opposing two styles in the same direction in a way that only Turnstile can. Soul is the first of the heavier tunes, proving early on just how integral drummer Daniel Fang's heavy fists and feet are to the Turnstile sound. His energy and his attack behind the kit creates this like vacuum that just pulls the surrounding guitar and bass towards him. Fang makes ultimately what are quite rudimentary riffs and progressions feel way harder and more engrossing than they would be in the hands of a drummer without that intensity. Look Out for Me and Birds are great examples of riffs that kind of get that elevation through Fang's locked in groove, making for, I think those make for some of the most satisfying moments on the record. One of the easiest wins there is for a band looking to one up their last release is to try and refine and elevate the production. The problem for Turnstile is that Glow On's production was like pristine and sounded great already, which left little room for improvement here. As a result, the band, I think, struggled to demonstrate any progression sonically and instead turned to expanding the instrumental detours. These detours have always existed in some form on a Turnstile release, and while out there, for a band that carry the hardcore label, they're usually quite fun. On that basis, expanding these moments might seem like a great idea, but the reality of multiple synth interludes, flute passages, and dance music detours, I just find they wear a little thin when all you're really waiting for is the next banger, especially on an album that resembles so closely what's come before from them. That being said, I do appreciate the continued pursuit of Latin rhythms underpinning their riffs. And while a bit like over the top, I quite enjoy the horns on Dreaming and also, shout out those warping wah pedal sounds on Dull. I guess the problem is that because I know how similar the record is to Glow On, I can't help but read any attempt to go bigger or go further as a self-conscious and cynical decision rather than an artistic one. Even as I come to terms with how much I enjoy many of the songs, that cynicism does linger in my head a little bit. Remaking Glow On feels like, either a cynical dig at an industry begging to churn out another hit, or it's a cynical attempt to pander to an audience wanting more, 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 more. It's in moments like these that you have to just get real. Like I'm projecting so much context onto this LP that when you break it down, just does not matter. And ultimately, I really like a lot of the songs on here. And while I think the instrumental dressing is used to mask some fading ingenuity in the core meat and potatoes of the riffs, the energy Turnstile bring to those riffs is still really infectious. I'd give this a 7.8, which might, I don't know, feel a bit low. Keep in mind all of these thoughts I kind of wrote in the immediate aftermath of the album coming out. So maybe it might be knocking on the door of an 8 or even higher at this point. I definitely have replayed it quite a lot. I think it'll be fun to revisit it in my end of year list, which is coming up pretty soon. And I will say, seeing Turnstile live since the album came out at what was it? It wasn't All Points East. I saw them at the Outbreak South, which was a killer day out. Just cemented how good they are as a band. So all of this sort of criticism and talk of like repeating their previous success, take it with a grain of salt. It was just something interesting that occurred to me while I was kind of putting my thoughts down of like, you know, I guess they just had me with the title being Never Enough and then it feeling like more of the same because you can never get enough of Glow On. Anyway, I'm rambling. Let me know what you think. Do you think it's another classic? Do you like it better than Glow On? Where do you put it in their discography? Let me know in the comments. Sign up to that newsletter. Like I said, my review of Turnstiles Never Enough has been out there for a while now, and all of you in the community will have seen that in the newsletter months ago. So if you want to kind of be the first to see all of these reviews, go down. There's a link somewhere down there in the description. I'll put it in the comments. Maybe check that out. Other than that, it's definitely time for me to knock it on the head because I am talking a load of shit. So take care, mate. Mind how you go. Cheers, mate. Bye.